everybody. How are we feeling this afternoon? Good start to the show? Had a good lunch? Had some coffee? Good
So
to
please
see
don't sleep.
everybody.
Don't fall asleep right now. We are trying to keep you awake.
No, food coma is not setting in yet. No, that's not until later. Very nice to see you all here. My name is Pearly Chen. I'm with HTC Vive. So I've been with HTC and really the founder of the company for the past 10 years now. My path into VR, XR was kind of accidental because of the pivot for HTC to have gone from a smartphone pioneer to pioneering this next platform shift for personal computing, spatial computing, and now we aspire for a better internet that is the metaverse. So I've held various leadership roles in the organization. What I enjoy the most, one of the hats I enjoy the most is investing in founders. So we've been investing in early stage companies since 2015. We've invested in over 100 companies globally. We continue to work closely with early stage founders and creators and people in the ecosystem, businesses big and small, to make sure that we can really, hopefully, rising tide lifts all boats, and we believe in the open ethos, building this future, this aspirational, better version of the internet with the open infrastructure and open philosophy. And so with me today is our excellent panelists to discuss one of my very passionate areas of investment as well. One is healthcare therapeutics. Many friends that I see in the audience here comes from that space. And the other part is really the creativity, how this new immersive interfaces and AI-assistive tools will allow more of us, including those of us that are not naturally artistic inclined, to create as well. And of course, we've observed how our children, I have 3 girls on my own, they're creating, and naturally in some of these worlds, the Minecrafts and Roblox of the world, they are the metaverse generation. We're at this exciting kind of cusp of seeing all these technologies converging to build this future where not just big companies create, but everybody can create. I'm excited about the idea of how these interfaces, the tools can come together and allow more of them create. So some of the panels and companies that are featured on this panel create and offer those tools. And I'm excited for them to tell you more about what they do and explore the concept of where this is all going and whether we feel optimistic ultimately or a little bit unsure about the creative destruction that is coming our way. So this is a very kind of conversational format. I very much look forward to a lot of interaction among us, but with you as well. With that, I would like to introduce Javier Bello from Inverse.
Hi, hello everybody. I'm going to try to match your energy, although I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. No choice.
I'll try. So yeah, I'm Javier, CEO and co-founder at Inverse. And what we do, our vision is to bring reality life into the metaverse. We come from a background both in neuroscience and 3D graphics. And what we do is really, with our software, we provide authentic holoportation in real time and at scale. So that means that we can create and capture a hologram of yourself in real time and bring it to these virtual experiences to engage the remote collaboration, to really have natural interactions and that you are there as your authentic self.
Super exciting. Voxel streaming.
Voxel, powered by voxels, yes.
And Gabriele from ShapesXR.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Gabriele, head of business at ShapesXR, and I know this is a very risky question, but who of you has used ShapesXR? Is there anybody in the audience? I see a hand, 2, 3, 4. Yes. Oh, this was risky. So at least we got some, I hope, user or fans. So ShapesXR is a design and a prototyping tool for XR. So some describe it as the Figma for 3D and immersive. It's a tool that allows you to step in your creation and really start creating truly spatial experiences. So you can then, what you have created collaboratively with others, you can share it, you can export it into Unity, you can create GLTF, make pictures of it, and the whole purpose is really to enable this new generation of creators to create these new experiences in a way that is detaching also from the technical background, from developers that are great at writing code, but not that often at building beautiful and delightful experiences. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Ian from Signal and Cypher.
Yes, pleasure to be here. I lead a company that is divided into 2 sections. One we call the future of work, and the other we call the future of tech. And the future of work is about assisting startups that have been A or seed round in this space to essentially build and scale their marketing so that they don't have to pay for an expensive CMO and expensive staff. On the future of tech side, we advise a lot of the companies whose products you own or movies you've seen on where is this space going and how do they actually take the future of tech and operationalize and monetize it within their own organizations. So tying those two together, we can often bring a lot of what's at the actual tip of the spear for artificial intelligence, synthetic media, and bring that to those large organizations and say, here's where the future is going, here's how you bring it to life. We're also a production studio, so we're building virtual worlds and we're doing a lot of storytelling with this new technology.
That's great. So we're going to dive into the conversation. I think first question is sometimes maybe a little uncomfortable, but why 3D? Why XR? Oftentimes we see a lot of solutions looking for problems that they can be used for, but oftentimes it's important to think very clearly and critically about why XR or these interfaces or these tools serve a purpose in the process of creation or in any aspect that they're deployed really. So let's start and talk about it. Why, from your perspective, Inverse offers this platform to bring more of your authentic self into the metaverse instead of some of the more cartoonish or stylized avatar. Why is it better than compared to today's video call that we do today?
Yeah.
Why would be a volumetric version of yourself make sense in future of communication?
So I think that we all have experienced that with Teams or Zoom and other platforms in which we are really boxed in a tiny window, and that's the only way that we can interact with each other in a remote setting, like with a screen divider between us. So what we really want to do is have this sense of presence by really capturing yourself in real time, capturing the other people, and regain that natural interactions, that eye contact in virtual environments, virtual spaces for collaboration, for remote training, and many other use cases. So I think that here is really about, and that's why I mentioned before the background in neuroscience as well. There are plenty of studies that show that you are more engaged, you are more active, you remember better what you are doing in 3D with your body that just being on a 2D screen and not being able to interact with the other people as naturally as you will do in reality. Yeah.
I find it interesting. You're saying you're using your body and your whole self as a creative tool. You're performing in the virtual world, and it's not just a rectangle that we're all getting so tired of from Zoom fatigue, but there's more possibilities to create this reality in the virtual environments where a lot of different creativity and creative combination can be presented.
Exactly.
That's
It's
really exciting.
not only to bring yourself there, but even to use your body as a tool for the creation. Like you can collaborate as you will do on a workshop altogether.
I mean, every communication is per se kind of like a performance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it.
We are performing right now for you.
Yeah, so I think absolutely, and all these creative, and I think it's not just about the ability, but also how you make it happen, right? So if you are able to get and capture someone, right, and represent it like in a way that is lower the technical barrier and doesn't make it like extra difficult. I think that's what we are all trying to do here. So I think that VR has that power, or these technologies have this power to enable people that are not necessarily creators to start creating. Right. So because if I have an object, I'm in a virtual environment, I can just move that object, grab it, and move it on the other side. While instead with standard 2D tools, I would need, I need to go to edit mode. There is a movement thing, and then there is this green arrow that move it on that axis. So that is what what a lot of the people deal every day, and that certainly slows down the creative process, and also the solution that you come up with it are, let's say, all bound to those tools that you're using that are inheritedly 2D.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and we talk about, of course, the benefit of why, in this case, 3D and your volumetric version of yourself is beneficial, but also the ease of adoption, right? Right now, to volumetrically capture yourself, you need to go to the expensive volumetric stage. They're few and wide apart and hard to access. What you want to speak to how people can capture yourself volumetrically with a platform like this, powered by software.
One of the things that we really want to do with our software is that to democratize a bit the use of volumetric video. To give you an example, we participated in another event about 3 weeks ago, and somebody was at the living room in London with a couple of cameras, our software, and streaming herself as a panelist, actually, on a stage using our volumetric capture. So it speaks to the fact that you don't have to go to a green screen studio with hundreds of cameras. You can set it up at your office, on top of your desk, on your living room, and really bring yourself into this experience.
So that's what we should have been doing today instead.
While we are all here.
Right. It's very easy just simple 2-camera setup with the software. You can volumetrically stream
Yeah.
your voxel into a holoportation presence on stage in the
Exactly.
collaboration environment. That's super exciting.
A question, maybe not Chris now, sorry, because
No,
how do people actually were seeing that person on stage? I mean, what were they seeing? Was it a screen or?
So actually, I mean, we are compatible with many devices. Obviously, you can see the volumetric capture in virtual reality, walk around the
Right.
people, and have a more immersive experience. But in that case, on a stage, we simply created a cabin, a glass cabin, in which it was
Okay.
the volumetric
Holographic
capture.
display.
Exactly. The
Okay.
hologram was displayed there.
Okay, inside the
And
cage.
she could actually speak with the other panelists live from
Okay.
London while the event was in San Francisco.
Right. And so why is collaboration better in 3D with ShapesXR, Gabriele?
I mean, collaboration, because we all collaborate in 3D, right? I mean, I think that we all work in space, and I think that collaboration is, so maybe a bit of background now. So in Shapes, one of the things that we have believed from building from the beginning is this ability to be together and create together. So we have completely rewritten the script for real time. So you will see that when you go in with others, you have the feeling really of being together, and working together. So of course, the feeling of being together, it relies on a lot on those like eye contacts and connection, body
Mental
gestures.
interactions.
But when it's about like communication and sometimes doing work and being productive, you really want to do things, right? And maybe, for example, moving stuff around, moving object, and so on. So, and we see also that during that stage, what happens is that, and this is like an interesting aspect, that creation is sometimes like a solitary process. I know this might sound like a bit contradicting, but like creators they create alone, but then they need the input of others to share, improve, and brainstorm. So what we have seen people doing, for example, is collaboration has two main aspects. The first, when you generate ideas. I am personally suck at generating idea alone. I need to talk with someone because it just don't come out. And sometimes after 15 minutes that I'm in space with others, I come up with beautiful ideas. Or at least I hope they're beautiful, but let's say in general, I make progress. I feel I'm making progress. So during the first stage, you get stuff in, you sketch it, you make variants, and then you throw stuff out. And then, okay, now I get it. I think we can go that direction. Then you take it out, you start working alone, right? You make progress, you are satisfied, and you refine it. But then you want to share it, right? So you want to then invite others. What do you think about this? Okay, yeah, this is the direction we are going. But what about we change it like this? So I think that might sound like we all now talking about collaborative tools. I think that collaborative, it's a part of the design process and a part of the creation process, especially key at the beginning during the ideation and while you share. And in that case, that's where those two really shine, and that is why doing in 3D. Honestly, I wouldn't know how people are still doing it in when you are creating a VR experience. How can you do it in 2D? It's still hard for me to imagine.
Right.
So I mean, I encourage everybody to give it a go and try it out, because I see so much more value in getting cardboard around and doing these kind of physical 3D things other than building like flat 2D interfaces
Yeah.
or
The
just
center of creation.
exactly.
For those in the audience that are less familiar with 3D content creation tools, they can all sound very similar. I've invested in many of them, and sometimes they all sound like fuzzy and fudged together. How is that one different from the other? But ShapesXR is actually a very unique 3D content creation tool in the sense that it's an idea prototyping and collaboration, iteration, and presentation tool. And so maybe not many of you know yet, but a lot of the top XR developers out there are already using Shapes today to build their XR applications. And what is alternative today? It's screenshots, Google Slides, or PowerPoints, or trying to illustrate what this user experience will look like, this onboarding journey. But in the 3D environment, there's no guesswork. It is exactly as you would envision. You create it natively inside 3D. So
And
that's
maybe
why
and maybe also to fill that up. So one thing is that 3D creation tool usually are seen as like a 3D creation. You create a scene and that's it. So one thing that differentiates Shapes is these stages. So we have basically like you build storyboards. I imagine many of you during your career have built story or have told user flows. So those are actually represented in sort of like 3D frames. So and that is why you can actually present to people, show a user flow, and really tell your design in motion,
right? Tell your story, and that's where it's shine. And people, for example, in this, was mentioned like team at FitXR or other products that have been launched on Meta Quest recently, like Nanome or Logitech. So those are using ShapesXR to indeed design, prototype, and present their ideas.
And there's, again, like I said, so many others. Some tools are designed to help you, let's say, model a 3D asset more easily using machine learning to simplify the texturing, the painting, rigging, animation process so that you can model quickly with a lot of the machine help. Others are designed to help you more easily create interactive experiences with visual scripting tools. And there are just so many others. And Ian is at the forefront of using a lot of these different tools in creating and delivering amazing projects and content for his clients. What part of this workflow does 3D really make sense for you?
I think for the tool sets overall, before we get to 3D, is if many of you are probably responsible for delivering a vision, an idea, a product for other people to approve or to build on top of. And when you're dealing with a tool that is layers abstracted from the final product, you're working on something in a 2D medium that's eventually going to be a 3D medium. The number of times you can eliminate the words, imagine a situation where, or imagine a world. And if you can pull that out of your vocabulary, you're that much closer to everyone understanding what you're saying, what you're doing, what you're creating in real time.
And people have a lot of imagination very often, way too much.
Yeah, well, I feel like it goes both ways. Like the people who are creating have so much imagination, those who are not in the process is like, I don't get it. And by pulling each other closer into the medium of creation, there are a few things that happen. One is everyone understands intuitively what's actually going on. The other is you eliminate the potential for someone to look stupid. And the reason I say that is if you're working with large organizations or you're working with people who are unfamiliar with the medium, one of the biggest killers to a product actually coming together is precisely that, is I don't understand what you're trying to show me. I don't understand what you're creating. But when you're together and you're doing it together in a way where people finally say, I'm using my hands, or I'm pulling things to me in 3D space, all of a sudden that fear evaporates and it moves quickly from, this is new to me, to, oh my God, what are the possibilities? And that's what's really exciting about this space. We're now moving towards a place where these collaborative tools are no longer, hey, did you see the prototype or the PSD or the PDF that we sent you? Can you sign off on it? Can we have 3 more meetings about what this will eventually be? It's, let's step into this. Let's get, strap on the headset. Let's go look at it in a 3D space and do it together. And it moves so much faster. And the joy around it is like multiplied times 10.
Yeah.
Actually, fun fact, there was one of the designer and I still remember forever what she said. She says, like, ShapesXR brought so much joy in my life. Like, I was like, okay. I mean, no, indeed. I mean, I think it's that the creatives needs also that energy, that level of flow, right? And I mean, of course, we are very proud of what we have built at ShapesXR, but I think this is true with a lot of the VR tools and capabilities, because it just makes you feel powerful, and that's something I really believe in.
Yeah. So we are naturally all believers already in this format for creativity, for engaging other parts of work that we think are just makes so much more sense. But in backstage, we're actually discussing how sometimes our mindset is a little stuck in the 2D interface, the click and mouse and keyboard, the pinch and zoom, etc. Even if it's a little counterintuitive, because you would think we're naturally 3D senses, 3D beings. Working in 3D, of course, be much easier. But funny enough, it seems like the youngest and the oldest population are the ones that find this transition easy and seamless. Whereas those of us that grew up with the 2D interfaces might sometimes find ourselves a little stuck. Hence, we're still struggling with the virtual keyboards in VR, and some other ways obstacles that we perceive in really exploring all the 3D possibilities. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts, and then what have you observed in that mindset stuckness in some of your adoption?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to change, right? It's always hard to change, and the fact is that these are really like new way of working. So if you think about it, it is like, so thinking that you can replicate and you should replicate what you're doing in 2D straight away in 3D, right? When you're maybe in VR. And what I've seen is that a lot of these VR tools have a great place, especially in the beginning, during the early stage of the design process, where let's say you're still rough around the edges and you don't need that high fidelity yet. But this is something that is sometimes opposite to what designers think. right? Because they want something that is immediately pretty, pleasant, right? And designers are very precious of what they create. And so you need to hit that sweet spot in order to have a designer be feeling comfortable in sharing what they have created. On the other hand, I've seen literally people that have started sharing like some early prototypes within the leadership, and they got incredible success because they were able to accelerate so much faster. So it is tough, and it's really like a mind shift in a way how people should create and should approach sharing and in general the whole process. And I've seen that success lies somewhere in between.
Actually, what I noticed is that some people have to unlearn what they have learned already to do these experiences, because we are so used to the point and click that I remember from demos that we have done or showcases that when a kid was wearing the headset and seeing the hologram of the other person in front of them, they were immediately running around, looking from different perspectives, trying to interact with it. So natural. While some older people were wearing the headset and statically in front of the hologram, not doing anything, and asking, what do we do? Well, you have a person in front of you. You can discuss with them. So yeah, I think that we have to unlearn some of the things that we are used to do on the phone or on the computer to just regain that natural interaction with what you can do in virtual reality and in 3D. Yeah.
And even if that's so counterintuitive to think about. But what about designing for mixed reality? Now with the hardware advances, with video pass-through cameras, all these different sensors, bringing our facial tracking, eye tracking, more of our bio data into the virtual world as well. How is creating for the mixed reality spectrum and different combination of virtual and physical reality different when you think about all these different tools?
Yeah, maybe actually a question. Yeah, indeed. So maybe a question that you are in contact with those clients, those companies, those organizations. Have you seen a shift in terms of what they request, what they ask, in their interest? Are they still aware? Are they already aware of those differences or not?
In terms of working spatially versus
in terms of that mixed reality world, right?
VR, AR, MR,
yeah,
XR,
that continuum. How is their awareness?
Yes, and it's kind of like saying, "Give me a metaverse."
Yeah.
Okay, it's the same thing. Oftentimes you can kind of tease what they're looking for, and there's usually a couple of different categories of the type of work they're looking for. Oftentimes they'll say, I want virtual reality, when they actually do mean, I want something as augmented reality or mixed reality. Or sometimes it's just something that's 3D and Unreal Engine. But it's a series of questions you ask afterwards about like, what is the actual purpose of what you're looking for, and you can get them there. But the creators, the people who are building these things, I do believe that the nomenclature is relatively well established. I think the most confusing for some people is still mixed reality versus augmented reality or virtual reality. But when it comes to executives making the decisions, it's still just, it's an acronym soup. I know I want a thing that does a thing. Do you know what I mean? But you get there.
Right. So mixed reality, you can talk about how ShapesXR is already prototyping the features for designing with the overlay in mixed reality environments.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, especially now that there are so many of these headsets that are being taking advantage of that, right? I mean, we just see the Pico Enterprise with the Scholar Pass-Through and many other headsets from Meta, Lenovo, HTC maybe at some point. But in general, right, I think that there is really like a lot of interest in that. And I think that poses completely different challenges, because now we'll be here, and if I would have, for example, maybe a teleprompter in front of me, where would that be positioned? Right? If that would be on a mixed reality experience, maybe I would have some glasses or something to have that information in front of me. Where would that be positioned? How would I design it, right? And I would want a designer to start thinking about that in this space, on this podium, instead of being behind a computer and try to imagine how this podium look like. So with the pass-through features that we are enabling, we are allowing people to start creating in mixed reality. So and you can also invite others. So you can basically, someone could be here with me. I could sketch around what are the edges of this podium, and then we could start working together on that. I could be sitting here and I could ask, hey, can you make it bigger? Can you make it more transparent? So indeed, really start creating what are the new generation of mixed reality experiences, whether that could be fitness, that could be cooking, that could be banking, that could be another training. So, and indeed, with that color pass-through, with this new generation of access, I believe that there is just no other ways of creating than just doing it in mixed reality directly.
How about mixed reality content with your body as a creative tool?
Yeah, so actually, I mean, right now, some of the use cases that we are doing is more for holoporting a keynote speaker in a virtual event or to have social interaction with others. But one of the first things that we created with our software when there was no pass-through was actually to see yourself while in virtual reality. So you were wearing the headset, looking down and seeing your own body in there. So that allowed that level of interactivity. Like we were guiding them through an experience in which they could use their own body, their own hologram, to touch a button, to move things around, to progress in the content as an experience. So I think that mixed reality is going to enable that you feel presence, that you see the others together with you, that you can collaborate, that is going to maximize the creativity of people through the collaboration and having that sense of presence inside of the experience. Yeah.
Now maybe it's time to talk a little bit about the challenges and opportunities that you see in these creative tools today. In what areas do we need to see more advances in different design mindset for user experience? And what other technologies do we need to think about incorporating into the creator tool suites so that more people, this aspiration that democratizing, lowering creative and technical barrier to create using these new interfaces can be realized? What are some of those challenges and opportunities?
So from our experience is interoperability. There is a clear need to make these tools, platforms, devices work with each other, because that will maximize the possibility of creation for everybody. And that is sometimes complex, because in the case of a startup, you maybe find a solution that is not immediately compatible with the platforms or the tools out there. In our case, it's voxels, is what solves the possibility of real-time capture for multiple people. Mm-hmm. But then it is very important for us to be able to collaborate with other companies, with other people that are creating tools, because otherwise the experience itself by itself doesn't make sense. You need to be able to create, you need to be able to be compatible with things that maximize that democratization of the creativity power of the
so
people.
Open standards, open protocols. I think that would be like the spirit of building the internet, where the internet was meant to and design and remain an open standard and protocol. Hopefully, we're building this next version and continue to adhere to that ethos so that it's truly democratized, its own, built by the people, owned by the people, shared with the people, versus separate walled gardens. Imagine what the internet would have become if it was that case, right? And so the early pioneering work of the Kronos Group and the Metaverse standard forums of the like, I think we are all very passionately supporting and participating. Hopefully, of course, despite the legal, commercial challenges that we can all imagine of what that true interoperability looks like, we will achieve it together. Yeah, and Gabriel, what do you see as some of those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, in the case, indeed. So it is about having the people to start creating and detaching from the way they have been doing a lot of the things they've been doing. So, for example, in our case, we see people creating, having a hard time detaching from their favorite tool, being, for example, Figma, or being, for example, Unity. And that it's tough, because it requires to unlearn, as you said. Yeah. So, on the other hand, people that have done it, then it's the moment that they really start like accelerating their own workflow, their organization accelerate. So I think that's the major challenge. It's not a technological one. It's really like a mindset. Like it's a bit like when we were at the web at the beginning. We had. The internet was a pretty ugly place, right? And because it was all made by developers, right? But then, thank God, designers came in, creatives came in, and then they made it a better place. So it took a while. And it was a matter of mindset, but it's also a matter of tools. So, but there cannot be one without the others, right? Because if they're on the right tool set, then the people will not change, will not be capable. I mean, they have no other way of doing it. So I think it's a journey, and that's something that has to change and evolve in time.
We need the great tools, but we also need to reset to either align our mindset to be ready for these changes. Ian?
I gotta say, I really thought my GeoCities site for video games in '98 was pretty solid. Getting back to the standards, a lot of what the industry is built on is thankfully an open source version of what was used for making movies. I mean, Pixar's USD format is one of the favored elements. There's also GLTF that, we'll see how a lot of these things play out. Hopefully there's more of a collaborative way forward, but it goes back to the internet. The internet was not designed for what we see it was today. It was really about institutions communicating with each other. There were military instances, there were academic instances, but all of us literally living every single second of our lives powered in some way by the internet was not the vision of the founders. I think that's a good and a bad thing for the metaverse. It forces us to both go to both sides of the equation. Of one is, what if the metaverse is everything like the internet is? But what if it's really nothing and it's all a load of bullshit? That's a good spectrum for us to be working within because it gives us an opportunity to have the conversation about what it should be. But as far as challenges are, I think for consumers, it's the paradigm of how do you think about these experiences. Creators, it's about shifting modalities of creating from looking at things structurally to looking at things spatially. You're now directing an experience. It's not just looking at an image or watching frames in succession. You have to understand how all of the objects inside of an experience will interact, whether that's within the real world or a virtual one. That turns you into a producer and a director and a creator all at once. That's a lot of responsibility for any one immersive opportunity. And then when it comes to interfaces, I think that's one of the things that we've become used to, and that's a big struggle. We're used to learning interfaces, but also there's an element of giving your brain time to process what's happening as you're clicking around an interface. So I have the time to think about how this filter is going to be applied to what I'm producing or how the camera movement is going to work as I'm directing it with my mouse. But when it's literally in real time as I'm shaping it, it short circuits that flow of response and interaction, and it compresses it significantly. And that's also intimidating to a lot of people who are starting to create with new tools. That, whoa, this is way faster than I thought. Now, when you get used to that, all of a sudden you've got turbo mode, and it's really cool.
Yeah,
But
I love. Ian was saying this, that he accepts and he's at peace with the fact that everything, all the content he creates is obsolete by the time he publishes it.
Yes.
So that he's always open to this new space for exploration and new creativity. It's a great segue to talk about AI, generative AI, right? Jason Allen's recent piece, entirely generated by text prompted machine, generation of this painting won a prestigious art prize, right? At what point can we still claim that creativity and art is a human endeavor versus, when do we pass a point where machines can actually do this better and express soul, express, human ingenuity in a way that is more authentic and more prized than that of humans. I think this is a very fascinating and fascinating development in the AI space as a breakneck speed. We had quite a very interesting discussion backstage about that. So I would like to shift the focus to there now. Are we feeling optimistic that we're going to, with a lot of optimism, is abundance, everyone will be able to create more. We're going to be true directors, producers, and we're just going to be bot masters versus what we do today, painstakingly learning all these tools that don't make sense and too hard to learn? Or is there some kind of dilemmas for us to think about? Is it more optimistic or more pessimistic, or yes, both?
yes, and.
Yes, and.
Absolutely. It's funny we're talking about this. I'm actually training a new model of stable diffusion upstairs as we speak. But speaking to stable diffusion, I personally believe the open sourcing of one of the large language models is a watershed moment for humanity, up there with the creation of the internet. And I'm not kidding. It's that big. What we've done is we've taken a model that was pretty much only available to the largest corporations in the entire world that had control about where it was going to be distributed, who could have access to it. Now every single one of us can create one. I'm literally doing that right now as we speak with a new checkpoint of a stable diffusion model on my own laptop. Something that I couldn't have done months ago, and now have my own training data set that I can use for any type of project I want to deploy it on. That is incredible power. And that's something that each one of us can then build on and incorporate into our own projects. What is amazing about that is you're now getting back to the idea of like abstracting interfaces. I can just create with words. The mode today is images through text, video through text, audio through text, but that'll go beyond text to, honestly, anything can generate that. It can be voice, it can be motion, it can be all sorts of interaction with your own body as an interface. Where we're going next is multimodal data sets where it's not just imagery, but you also have video, audio, music, currently in separate instances, but soon enough you'll be able to generate most of those through one single interface. Say, I want to be able to create a video with this type of context, this environment, this type of camera movement, with this type of music, and it's 30 seconds long. Done. You create as many generations as you want, and then you can direct it from there. but there's immense power that comes from that. I'm very optimistic about that level of creativity. There are other things I'm a little bit less, I wouldn't say optimistic, but I'm a little nervous about the direction. The issue isn't as much the technology here as it is our use of it. There's a great saying of technology is neutral until you implement it. Well, guess what? We implement the technology. And I don't always believe that because there's bias built into code and algorithms, but then again, that gets the circle of our interaction with it. So I'll open that to
But
you
I
guys.
mean, don't you feel threatened? I mean, at some point, you're just building your enemy? Right, because that's what you're doing right now on your laptop.
Yes.
What would
yes.
artists do for a living?
Yes.
What would creators do for a living?
That's a fantastic question. So getting back to what I create, and I focus on creating content about and with new and emerging technologies. And I do believe that by the time I hit publish, if you really look at the speed of science, it's already outdated. My goal and my value as a creator isn't so much of like, look at this thing, it's a thing, you should do it. It's, I want you to walk out of an experience I've created and say, wow, I just experienced the future, or I know what that technology is all about because I saw it, I listened to it, I felt it. And not so much I saw about it on a slide and it's cool now. And that's really where my value comes from. It's about creating an experience in that response. And that's going to be there regardless of what technology I'm going to use. But to that point, technology over time is going to get better and better at creating those experiences that can elicit responses like that. There's all sorts of inputs we can use to understand what elicits a funny response or an emotion of sadness and anger. And technology will eventually be able to create those too. It's just a matter of being able to feed that information back in a way that's trainable and being able to structure and make it legible for machines. So I do believe there will be a day where it's no longer what we call centaur creativity, where it is person and machine combined to create something. And machines will be able to create things that are better than we can in many instances completely on their own. And then machines will work with machines and you'll have AI creating AI. And that's not a pipe dream, it's not far in the future. There are instances of that happening right this minute. So it's inspiring, and yes, it's also incredibly frightening at times because that's a paradigm we've never had to put ourselves within. We've always, and as a society, we often look at creativity as an innately human trait, but it's not. Machines are incredibly good at copying creativity. If you overly reduce the idea of creativity, it's essentially two things that in the current paradigm may not make sense together, but when you shift the perspective, all of a sudden they do. It happens a lot with art, happens a lot with movies, music, etc. The idea of creativity is combining things that often shouldn't be together. Machines can do that billions and billions and billions of times faster than we can. And they can imitate, they can mimic, they can replicate. And a lot of people say, well, they can't really bring the imperfections of the human form to bear. Yeah, they can. They can. They do it very, very well. So yeah, there's an element of the unknown that is frightening about like, where is our place? And that's something that we have not navigated yet because we've never been here before. But at the same time, it's exciting to be able to be at this place and help direct it. And there's never been a time where we can be more participatory in that building of the future than ever before. Like I said, we were just given one of the biggest and most important tools ever in humanity. Because we have this, guess what? There'll be more open source large language models that come after this, and more and more and more. And what used to be available only for billions can now be had for 50 cents.
So is the metaverse then going to be built by machines or creators?
Well,
by you and me? Where should we place ourselves?
I think that coming back to the example of the internet currently is driven by creators, right? And you are experiencing that content. So whether if we are the creators or AI is the creators, those are the tools that are going to give you those different experiences. So I think that for the success of the metaverse, investing on those tools for creators, whether if it's operated by a human or artificial intelligence, is very important. And that really closes the circle of the success of those experiences are going to be linked to the quality of the experience, and those are going from the creators and the creative tools.
And for the audience who are feeling very pumped up and excited, inspired by being part of this future, creating this future with the assistance of machines, what should they be trying today if they're not already? What are the tools that are you very excited about that they should get their hands on today after walking out of this room?
I hear Shapes XR and immersive.
Outside
No,
of those that you
actually,
talked
I'm gonna say something
about.
completely different. So I don't know if anybody here, actually, funny enough, I brought it up and Ian said, yes, I did it. Did anybody here in the room tried WOMP? Nobody? So I have a Whomper down there. So it is this very interesting tool. It's a web-based, and it is basically like 3D modeling, but it's not really 3D modeling. So instead of using sub-D modeling or using sculpting, those are the things that are usually used to create those 3D objects. It's more like molding and like melting shapes into each other that combine into something that is like unexpected and beautiful. And one thing is that you just start with 3 things: a capsule, a cylinder, and a sphere, and you're good to go. So you start creating and assembling those. You can group them and change their color. So it is very like a very unique experience, and the community is creating some amazing things. So it's WOMP. You have a question? WOMP. And then you can export it as an OBJ and bring it in Shapes XR. But another thing.
How about Ian recently started producing these content that's like a weekly anchor, AI-driven anchor news created entirely by text. Do you want to talk about that? Is that an exciting tool that people should try?
Absolutely. So the idea of replicating your own form as an avatar is getting easier and easier and easier, and you also have some phenomenal examples of really high fidelity avatar reproduction. So I work with a company called Hour One to essentially replicate my likeness as a video avatar. And I do a weekly segment for Defiance Media now called The Future Report. We talk about where some of the developments are, some of the things that are happening on this stage. And rather than having to get up, go to a studio, get makeup put on, and be under lights like this for 2.5 hours and do take after take, I write a script in 30 minutes. I pull a couple of images, I cut some footage together that I want to have as my B-roll, and then I drop it into the interface and it renders it for me. And it does everything from camera movements to pull-ins, push-ins, actually doing the voice. The voice is not mine, by the way. It's a professionally trained actor. It sounds almost as good as me. But it's, and then it reproduces the speech, and using, of course, like wave to lips / proprietary deepfake technology, it makes the lips move and the body move basically from the torso up in a way that looks very natural. So I am basically anchoring the future news without ever having to step foot in a studio or even get out of my pajamas. It's kind of nice. And that comes out every week as a 2-minute segment, and it takes me just a couple hours to produce. It's been really amazing.
Yeah.
So it's with a company called Hour One, hour1.ai.
1 hour, Hour One.
Hour One,
Yeah.
HOURONE. And the group that is the media company is called Defiance Media.
But if anything that you walk away with today is hopefully the curiosity and the inspiration that there's so many tools out there to explore, and not just these creative tools that you can create video content, avatar, AI-driven, assistive AI, just generative AI, and all of this, but in different verticals, whether that's medical XR simulation creation tools, or it's training creation tools based on virtual human platforms, or it's really endless, and it's so encouraging to see so much effort, ingenuity, and capital, and entrepreneurial hustle that go into building tools that will amplify and scale the impact of these technologies to build the aspirational future that we all want to see. So I think that's all of the time we have to cover today before the Q&A.
Yeah, so we have some Q&A. Please, I'd like to raise your hand if you have a question. I'll try to repeat the question part, and so we can record it. So any questions?
Maybe I do have a question to warm up. Sorry.
Yes.
So the question to you guys is, since we have discussed about AI, one curious I was, who has successfully used any of these AI-generated images in their workflow? Like besides the, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
So it's serious. So it's serious.
Yeah.
So it's really happening. No,
I love
and
it.
sometimes I already doubt that people start writing stupid prompts and they spit out images that, okay, it was funny, but no, but indeed, I think
It's more than a party trick. I love it.
yeah. Nice.
So any questions?
I think I saw a question over there.
Can or are we already there to create 3D assets?
Create three.
Engine with AI?
So can we create 3D assets with AI?
Yes.
Yes.
There are several models that already do it. I wouldn't say any of them are going to give you AAA quality assets just yet, but we're getting there. NVIDIA has Get 3D, and there are several other models that will also produce 3D assets in different formats. Some will be point clouds, some will actually be OBJ files. So depending on what you're looking for and how you're looking to produce it, there are several out there. And from what I've been hearing, there are some pretty major developments that will be happening within the next month that you should be definitely on the look for.
Great. Next, Jim. Yeah.
Sorry, I will just like jump on that because you just said you heard in a couple of months something
Yes.
happen, and I feel like that's since a year or two, that's what's going to happen. We started with images and then we're just putting images together, and now we can take. It didn't work with faces, now it's working with faces.
Yes.
It didn't work with video, now it's working with video, now it's turning into 3D. I feel like there's it's never ending, which is fantastic, right? Which is amazing, but it is also scary.
Yes.
Because literally, I feel like a few months ago, nobody would have talked about videos. It's oh, okay, images are nice. They can be faces, that's cool, but videos, come on, that's too advanced. I see it everywhere.
Yes.
I can create a video with AI, just gone.
Absolutely. So is there a question behind that, or?
Comment.
It is scary.
Yes, yeah.
It is scary.
Yes. Is it scary? Yes.
Yeah.
There's a great chart that I saw recently. I'd love to source it, but it's a graph of the velocity of papers published to archive.org. So archive.org, for any of you interested in the space of machine learning, is the place to go to read all the papers on what's happening in large language models, AI, ML, and it's literally an exponential curve. And it's been fast for a while, but the thing about exponential is it doesn't feel exponential until you start hitting the integers. And then once you get there, it's just breakneck speed, and we still haven't gone vertical just yet, so there's more room to go. But the pace of innovation and publishing in ML AI it's not slowing down. It's ridiculous.
So I have two questions for the audience. Who here considers themselves a creator? Okay. Adding the AI tools, who now consider themselves a creator? More? More? This is really interesting because it's starting in the Renaissance, creators were able to monetize their work, artwork. And that's sort of in the terms of all the time that people have been creating, that's actually a very small sliver. For me being an artist, question for you, very different from the creator. Creator creates UI that is used work for hire kind of stuff. Is this period of time that we have as artists that we have, is this going to be a finite period of time?
That's a really good question. A finite period of time. I do think that we're moving into a new paradigm. There's a great book by Thomas Kuhn called The Structure of Scientific Revolution, and he talks about how we move from one paradigm to the next. And oftentimes when you see bits and pieces, you were just pointing about earlier, we saw this one bit of imagery and it just wasn't good at hands or faces, and we kind of dismissed it, and all of a sudden, holy crap. Those new bits of data are often dismissed as anomalies, and they become more frequent, and then essentially it moves us into a new paradigm where okay, this is the way we are now. And until there's a new iteration beyond that, I do think that there will be a finite period of time where we're talking about ourselves as creatives or artists. The language that we use also tells us where we are in the state of our relationship with technology. So the more we focus on that, I think that is also a signifier that we're at the very beginning. Yeah. But when we're in it, I think that vocabulary will actually disappear to some extent. I think people will just talk about creation or just doing something. Yeah. Kind of like you don't go onto the internet anymore or surf the web. You just go about your daily life and you're doing it. Yeah. I feel like creativity is going to experience a very similar transformation.
Yeah. We're seeing this change. The value of process is getting better, greater than the value of product.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that's what defines art very often, right? Yeah. I mean, it's the fact that it's the journey that the artist went through that defines that as an art piece. It's not the final crappy painting, to be honest, because very often, and that's what I'm feeling. But when you hear and understand the journey, that's the value that is attached to it.
Yeah. Any more questions? Well, I thank you all very much.
Thank
this is
you
a great
all.
conversation.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
We have another.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, panelists. Thank you.